Welcome. I'm Jessie, and I'm a birth mother.
I'm Carrie, an adoptive mother and an adoptee.
And I'm Marilyn, a transracial adoptee from Haiti, and we are Roots.
Together, we make up the Adoption Triad. Thank you for joining us as we explore the realities of adoption from our diverse perspectives and knowledge.
We know that each adoption experience is unique and deserves to be valued and respected. We understand that our stories may not be reflective of everyone else's experiences, but we strive to represent the adoption community well.
Please note that in this series, we will delve into thought-provoking topics that may challenge your perspectives, but we encourage you to listen with an open mind and desire to learn. So pull up a seat and let's talk. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Roots. My name is Marilyn Mundesier, and I am the Director of Adoptee Relations here at Abiding Love Charities. Today, I have Jessie and Jamie with me. Would y'all like to introduce yourselves, please? Jessie, you can go first.
Hello, I'm Jessie. I'm the director of birth mother programs at Abide and Love Charities, and yeah, that's who I am.
I'm Jamie. I am the director of adoptive parent services and the adoptive mom to two daughters.
Okay. And folks, we're feeling a little extra silly today, so bear with us. But today we're going to talk about after placement and talk about visits. Jesse and Jamie have a lot of good ideas and tips, and I'm just going to kind of help moderate. And if I have any suggestions or thoughts or questions, I'll jump in there. But this is definitely going to be a Jesse and Jamie show. Jamie, would you like to start us off with why is it important that we even have this conversation about visits?
I think it is a question that I often am asked by adoptive parents of like they're just asking questions about what should a visit look like, who starts the visit, how long should a visit be, just all of the logistical questions that come about with planning a visit before you've even considered some of the emotional implications behind it. And so I think it's important just to talk about it.
Yeah, definitely.
Agreed.
What
Agreed. I
about
get
you,
that
Jesse?
question a lot. Like, what do the visits look like? How should we prepare? And I think families overcomplicate it sometimes, which is understandable. I mean, it could be kind of a tricky thing to navigate, but I think just needs to be more conversation around it, manage some expectations when planning visits and whatnot.
Yeah. So I know we do coaching calls with families prior to placement. Do y'all talk about visits in your coaching calls or how is that conversation?
It almost always comes up. If it doesn't come up in the conversation naturally, I do bring it up because we're talking about, yeah, there's a lot of elements to the visit from the birth parent experience and perspective that families need to be aware about so that they can even help manage mom's expectations and just kind of remind her and validate her that they are still committed to these visits and still going to show up. Because there is a fear that it's going to fall through and that they're not going to show up or they're going to cancel last minute. And so I even discussed like how families can kind of manage that conversation and just reach out and encourage and put in those little points of communication that let her know like we're still coming, we're so excited, looking forward to it. So yeah, it's definitely
Yeah.
something that comes up often.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I talk about it on mine too. I also am a big fan of when a family will reach out to me, and their adoption at that point has finalized, and maybe it's a few more months, and they're like, "Hey, we're trying to plan our first visit." And there's always a lot of nerves, especially surrounding that first visit. And they ask, like, "Can we just get on a call and talk about like what this is going to look like?" And
Hmm.
I love that because I recognize that this is not an easy thing to do, and it's not normal, and you are unlikely to be able to talk with some of your closest friends and family about it because it's not something that they, experience and are thinking about planning in their lives. So I'm a big fan of talking it through with families,
Yeah.
like I said, post placement, post finalization, because I think about sometimes there's the talking about it ahead of time and what this is going to look like. But then, like I said, like 6 months later, 8 months later, like you've been living life for a while now and
Hmm.
trying to figure out how to make this work like really, really.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so one question is, I think what we need to answer is and why, what is the purpose of these visits? Like, why are they so important um to have, like, an open adoption?
Jamie, do you want to answer that one?
Sure. I mean, I think it is probably one of the biggest pieces of the foundation of trust in this relationship. I think as an adoptive mom, if I've made a promise that I am going to make sure that the woman that is the mother to my children sees those children again, like I have to follow through with that. It's important
Mm-hmm.
for me to follow through with that. And if it's something that she's asking for, I need to make sure that it happens.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I
I
agree.
agree.
I mean, it's important for all three sides of the adoption triad. Obviously, the child needs to have a relationship to the best of their abilities, with their biological family. And I understand that circumstances and logistics and things unfortunately get in the way, but I feel like I have to say that disclaimer. Obviously, we know that there are certain situations that make visits challenging. I'm not really
Hmm.
talking about those situations in this, but it is important that the child develops that relationship and has confidence in that relationship because ultimately the adoptive parents are modeling what this relationship is going to look like for their child. And so the more normal it can be and the more comfortable it can be, the easier that transition is going to be for the child later on when they have an independent relationship with their biological family. But I also think the adoptive parents are, by spending time with the birth family, they're getting to know their child a little bit better as well and can parent them according to some of these inherited characteristics that they got from their birth family. And so the more that they get to know them, I think just the easier it's going to be and more
Hmm.
familiar they're going to be with their child. Because like for me, parenting my two sons, like I parent them differently because I can see how one is maybe more like my husband than
Right.
one is like me. And that does change the way that I maybe discipline them or just parent them in general. And so those are all the little things that I think adoptive parents can gain from that openness and from having those visits and having very intentional visits. And then, of course, for the birth parents, it is incredibly healing and it does allow us to kind of work through our experience and our grief if we are developing that trust with the adoptive parents and see that they are committed to not just, raising this child well, but also to us, and not just making us feel like we're an obligation or something to check off a list.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I was adopted transracially and transnationally, internationally. So it's different, but I like how y'all talked about, Jamie, you brought up trust. And there's also that safety part. So as an adoptee, um, a lot of these visits really it's only for the adoptee, right? It's like it's showing your child that you love them. It's showing them that you love their family, their culture, everything about them. And so not being intentional about visits and the openness that is telling a story to your child, whether people like it or not, is telling them something. So um I think these visits are a way to help encourage positive thoughts for your child's inner voice and how they view themselves and view their family. And so, yeah, I think that's spot on. Um, Jamie, you said that people will follow up with you. What are some of the key, what is like one or two of the things that they want to talk to you about? Post placement, they've been in this for a little while. What are some of their concerns?
I think the biggest concern is making it an enjoyable visit for everyone. And I think that that's important. Consider your audience, like consider who's going to be there at the visit. I have some rambunctious little children. If I am trying to stuff them into a restaurant booth and make them sit there and have conversation for 2 hours, are they going to enjoy the visit?
Hmm.
Probably not. Are they going to want to
Mhm.
do that again in the near future? Probably not. And so really tailoring your visit so that it is enjoyable for your child as much as it is for the adults, because like you said, like ultimately this is for them and for their relationship. And so you
Hmm.
want them to feel that it is a visit that they're looking forward to, that they're excited, that it was not, there wasn't pressure on them to perform at these
Mhm.
visits.
Yeah.
Um, so that is a big piece that I feel like I said, just kind of the logistics. Like, what do we do? How long are we supposed
Right.
to be doing these things? Where should we go? Where should we not go? Those types of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Jesse, so what are some concerns from a birth mother perspective that you've heard, experience-wise and from yourself, and from others that are concerns going into these visits?
So families seem to be really hesitant because they don't want to upset the mom or the birth parents. And so they don't know how to plan, they don't know how to initiate this conversation. Because I mean, just as much as birth parents fear that rejection, I know adoptive parents fear that too. And so it can be kind of intimidating to start that conversation. But they don't really know like what it looks like. They're like, how, what do we do? What do these visits look like? And like Jamie was saying, I mean, I think you have to consider the age of the child. You know, we see a lot of people go to playgrounds, zoos, things like that, restaurants if you can, maybe later, but don't let that be the only thing you do.
Right.
Because yeah,
Right.
not only is the child sitting and squirming, but like as a parent, like it's stressful going to a restaurant with my own children because they have to behave, and then I feel like I have to make sure I look like the perfect parent out in public and things like that. And so I can imagine that there's even more stress on the adoptive parents in those situations to make sure that they're, you know, parenting their child and managing the child well. And so now everyone is performing in that situation. And so when you've got movement, when you're doing, you know, just really low expectation, um, activities. There's all sorts of things that families can do, but I think the timeline is also something families worry about because they fear that if the visit is too long, that that's going to be harder for the mom.
Mhm.
And so they think maybe like a short and sweet little visit is enough. And a lot of times it's going to vary from mom to mom. And in that case, I recommend they just ask, ask her and say,
Mhm.
hey, like, you know we have a visit coming up soon, or, you know, we've this summer, is it too early to start planning? We've got some dates
Mhm.
or weekends that we know will be available. What does your summer look like? Or whatever time of year
Yeah.
they're planning it. And then just start the conversation, see what they're up to. And I think families also need to consider, you know, the cost of things as well. You know, mom
Yeah.
might not be able to pay for her trip to the zoo, or if there's other children involved as well, families are going to have to account for that too. But yeah, it really is like the fear of upsetting her and fear of doing too much or too little.
Mhm.
When really it comes down to having just a conversation and opening up that door and figuring it out together.
I
Yeah.
think something else that's important too, as you're planning it and having these conversations, is who's going to be at these visits. Like you talked about, like, is it her? Does she have other children that she's parenting? Are they going to be there? Are there other family members? And I think those are good conversation pieces to have ahead of time so there aren't any surprises when it comes to the visit. Because again, like, I mean, there's obviously the cost piece of it if you are doing
Hmm.
a structured activity that requires payment. And I mean, it's my thought process on that is as the adoptive parent, like I should be covering the cost. If I am suggesting an event type thing, like a zoo or a trampoline park or a something like that, like as the adoptive parent, like I should be covering that cost.
Hmm.
I'm not going to suggest going to Disney World and inviting them unless I'm going to pay for all of them to also go to Disney World.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes, we have these like fairy tale ideas of what we want a visit to be, and we want it to be magical, and so it's over the top, and then that's like unsustainable for the long term. You can't
Yeah.
have these over the top visits every single time.
Mhm.
It's not like the basis of a good relationship. I don't feel like
Right. Because the
either.
child's going to see that and even grow up and expect like grand things, you know, even when they're able to have their own independent relationship. Like you want them to be excited about seeing their biological family, not necessarily like the activities and the visits, if that makes sense. Like, yes, that goes along with it, but yeah, you do want it to be sustainable and almost like a normal outing and something a little bit more casual. I think it would be really special if mom lives in town, like if she grew up in the town that she's living in, taking a day and like exploring like her favorite part of that town or like going to her favorite restaurant because now the child has that memory of like this is where my mom loved to eat or this was her favorite coffee shop, like little things like that that tell her story and can kind of connect the child to their biological family. Those are like little things that they can do that are fairly easy.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, you show us around town. Like, what do you want to do? What are your favorite spots? Let's go check those out.
I absolutely love that. I love that. I love that. I don't think I've heard you say that before. So, because it's really important. And one thing I talk about in my coaching calls is, unfortunately, adoptees sometimes just we don't have, like just like you might know the smell of your mother's hair, or you might know that she's a lefty, or that she likes her eggs scrambled. A lot of those things we don't know. And thankfully with open adoptions, there's more opportunity for that. But there's something special of knowing which coffee shop your birth mother liked, or your birth father, even if it was like, oh yeah, I used to take my car to this shop. It's so small, but it's everything because we have so many
Yeah.
puzzle pieces missing that it might not seem like it's a big deal to you, but it is everything for the big picture. So I think that's really good.
I think it
Um,
humanizes us too. Like when you get to see just
mhm,
like your everyday average
yeah,
life of like what life looked like for me or
mhm,
what life does look like. It's like, oh, this is a real person who has a real life who does things and has structure and routine and habits and yeah, so it's less of like a figment of your imagination, more of like a real
mhm.
person who exists in this world and yeah,
Yeah, yeah, not just that moment in time. Like you're just so
right,
many moments, and that just happens
right.
to be one moment. Um, Jamie, you have had a couple of visits. Can you share I want to know like your very first visit that you had, if you can remember, and kind of
Yeah.
give me your thoughts
Yeah.
about that.
No, so our very first visit, my oldest daughter was about 4 months old. We had just finished finalization. And for me, and not that anything would have changed, but there was a security knowing that finalization had happened
Hmm.
for me.
Okay.
Um, so our daughter's birth mom lives about 4 hours away, and so we had planned to travel down there. And so we went and we actually met her for lunch at the same restaurant that we had eaten at the very first time we met her.
Mhm.
So that was kind of a fun full circle moment. We actually even had the same server, and they remember, they're like, "Oh, we
Oh,
remember you guys."
that's so
That's
cool.
crazy.
I mean, because we kind of stand out a bit, but they're like, "Yeah, we remember you guys." And so we did that, and we spent some time together at a restaurant, and then after that, we went to a playground. She's parenting another child who was a toddler at that point. And so kind of back to what I was saying earlier, like sitting in a restaurant is only fun for so long with a toddler. So went to a playground and got to spend a couple hours together at the playground then too, like pushing, like I remember my husband was pushing my daughter's sister on the swing, and then her birth mom was pushing her. And so it was a nice moment. Something that we did choose to do at that particular visit is we had um her advocate with us at the visit, just to kind of be an extra person. It's
Mm.
the only time we've ever done that. Like, I feel like it was kind of, that first visit, none of us really knew what to expect. And so having
It's awkward.
it is a little
Like if you
awkward.
pretend that it's anything but, I think you're
Yeah.
doing yourself a disservice because it's just weird.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and it did. It made me feel so much better having
Uh,
somebody, like a third person from the agency that was there. It was a little bit of like a safety and security net for us. Um,
Yeah.
and I've got great pictures from it. I do remember, like, around 4 months old is a time where I feel like a child does start to very much like be a bit more clingy to their
Hmm.
primary caregiver, and that gave me a lot of
mhm.
stress, like
Hmm.
leading up to that visit, that she wasn't going to want to go to her birth mom.
Then we have
Um,
concerns too. Like I hear that I was mentoring a mom, and she was preparing for like a visit, and I think her baby was around like 6 months old at that time. And I told her, I said, heads up, like 6 months is around the time that children develop, like stranger danger. And I hate using that word,
Right,
with
right.
her, but she might not recognize you, might not be super familiar to you, or to her. So she might be a little hesitant. Thankfully, it wasn't, but I had to kind of prepare her for the reality because I've seen moms go into visits and the child is like, wants something to do with them.
Yeah.
And it's devastating. And so just managing birth mom's expectations too on my end is something that I always try to take a time to discuss because, yeah, you never know how the child is going to behave and everything. And that's really hard because yeah, you want your child to recognize you and love you and come to you and everything. And sometimes they're just a little bit
Yeah.
unsure, um, especially at
Yeah, and I
that
think that's
those early
hard, like
days.
on, like you said, like on both sides. Like you want your child to recognize you and come to you. I want that my child to recognize me and come to me. And so it's this weird kind of balancing act. And
Right.
then there's things like I can remember distinctly, like when it came to give her a bottle. And because I have this very distinct memory when we were in the hospital together of her birth mom feeding her. And of course, she had already parented a child at this point, whereas this was my first child. And so like her giving me like tips on like how to hold her and feed her. But then 4 months later, like I knew how she liked to be held to feed the bottle. And it felt like such like a
Yeah.
switch, a
Wow.
change. And but then also like a guilt on my part that like I was the one who knew all of those things, not her.
Yeah.
And I don't want to hurt her feelings. I didn't want to feel like you're not
Yeah.
doing it right. Because like
Right. Like
it's
you
not
don't know
like
your
you're
own
not,
child kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
there's a
let's
weird
in,
balance.
let's look at I like this. This is so good.
Oh
Let's
gosh.
look at this situation, right? Let's pause so for a parent listening who has experienced this or is like, okay, this sounds overwhelming. What are some tangible things? Should an adoptive mom or father let the birth mother lead, or should the birth mother or the adopted parents lead during these like visits? Like, are there any tangible steps or ideas that can help better all the parties in this, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I know that's not every birth mom is different, but I would say in general, like we're so afraid to overstep and we're gonna kind of accept the bare minimum, to be honest. And it's
Mhm.
it's fine, it's fine. We don't want to impose. So if a mom is asking for something, that's a big deal. Like it took her a lot to speak up and say something. Again, not every mom. Some moms are much more comfortable and, you know, advocating for themselves. But um, uh, I mean, I think the adoptive parents should lead.
Well, I
Mm,
feel like there
Um,
is, like, kind of on the flip side of that, there is this feeling from as an adoptive parent that I have to prove that I
yeah,
know how to do it, like that I'm doing it right.
mm,
right,
And it's this balance of like, I want to show you that you made the right choice in me. And like, let me show you that I know how to do this and doing it right and not
right,
overstepping and allowing her to also ask for
mhm,
things in
right.
this.
Yeah, it's hard because, like, I mean, yeah, like I think, again, I think the adoptive parents like kind of should lead in a way, but like being mindful of how she might be feeling and initiating certain conversations, knowing that she might be hesitant to ask or uh, I don't know. I think a family should absolutely give moms opportunities to be helpful. Like there was one mom who was asking how she should, what she should do in a situation. They were having a visit where the birth parents were coming to their house, both the bio dad and mom, for the child's birthday party. And they have a really wonderful open relationship. But I think this was like the first time that they were going to come for something like this. And so she's like, how do I make them feel comfortable? And I said, let them be involved in the preparation in the morning. Like if you're setting the house, if you're putting the food together, I'm like, have her help you in the kitchen. Have them, dads play with the kids, keep them occupied while you guys are planning. Like incorporate her in those tasks in those day to day. Otherwise, she's just gonna kind of sit there awkwardly, not knowing if she should even be there and feeling uncomfortable. But if you can incorporate her into that everyday stuff, that's gonna make her feel a lot more relaxed, especially leading up to the party and everything, and that you're not intimidated by our presence there if you're allowing us into your life like that. Like you think if you think about it, just going over to anyone's house, like you do feel a lot better when they're like, "Oh, hey, like will you help me do this?" And you just kind of, "Oh, okay, whew," like I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. It just kind of helps relax. And same if like visits, like, hey, do you want to hold her? Or, because a lot of moms like were
Right.
afraid to ask, if oh, can I hold her? Can I feed her? And I think if you allow her to feed, you could say, oh, what I've noticed is she seems to like it better if I hold her like this, or, she's been having
Right.
some reflux. So the doctor told us it's best to hold her in this position, whatever it is. I think that there are ways that you can guide um guide mom depending on what's going on without making her feel bad that she maybe doesn't isn't familiar with her own
Yeah.
child in that way. But
Yeah.
it's hard. I mean, I think there's going to be things that are going to be said. There might be things that are going to be done that are going to kind of make people
Hmm.
go, "Ooh, that stung a little
Yeah.
bit." And I think that's just part of it.
Hmm. Well, it seems like communication is the biggest thing. Um, what if, because I know I will from what I've heard, Jamie, you've adopted. Adoption can be a financial like burden or just a big financial thing to do. And y'all talk about like Disney World or doing these visits and stuff. What happens if you have an adoptive family who, they're doing these visits and then something happens and they come upon like some hard time, like life happens, right? Things go up and down. And they're not able to do these visits the way that they wanted to, the way that they expected to. What kind of advice do you have for those kind of situations?
Yeah, I mean, that's hard because, part of stepping into adoption is making a promise that you are able to care for this child and to then
Mm-hmm.
have to kind of admit that you have fallen into a harder financial time when you have made a promise that you're able to provide them a different lifestyle than what they likely would have been born into. That, I mean, it's tricky. Um, and obviously, if you're closer distance wise, I feel like it makes it a lot easier because you're likely to be able to drive or something. Whereas if you're
Right.
across the country, that can
Right.
be a really hard challenge. I think, I mean, you have to be able and willing to communicate with them and kind of let them know, which again, I'm admitting like that's a hard conversation
Yeah.
to try and have. I mean, in terms of like the actual visit, like if you can get into the location, like, some of our favorite visits are like an afternoon at the playground and then Chick-fil-A, like we
Mhm.
could do a whole visit for under $100 type thing
Yeah.
in that respect. But if you find yourself not being able to travel cross country, I think you really need to be aware of stepping up things for like phone calls and Zoom calls and ways to be able to still be in a face-to-face relationship, even if you're not in physical
Hmm.
proximity.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is hard. And
What
be
about you,
and be
Jeff?
proactive about that
Hmm.
conversation too, because you don't want to wait until mom reaches out or something and like you need to say, hey, you need to initiate that conversation before it gets too late
Hmm.
kind of thing. And yeah, you've got to figure something out and kind of come up with a compromise, but also let mom know like this is still a priority because she might not believe the parents. And that's the other thing is like we don't know what mom's situation is. We don't know who in her life has maybe let her down in the past. And so it could validate insecurities and fears in her that this family is now falling back, and not following through with their commitments when really it's just the situation. And so I mean, hopefully if an adoptive parent is in that situation, they have support from their agency or someone else that can help advise them of how to navigate this conversation. But be aware that that could trigger that of like, yep, well, everyone else in my life has let me down.
Hmm.
So here we go. It's a prime example. They're of course they're not going to show up because I hear from moms often where a visit has been planned and the visit is coming soon and the family has purchased their flights and they don't even realize that they're talking like this, but they'll say things like, yeah, I mean, they might be coming in on Friday. And I'm like, they might be. Like, I thought you guys already had plans. Like, what do you mean might? But you can hear the doubt and they don't even realize it. But that's because they've had other people in their lives not follow through or cancel at the last minute. And so I often tell families, if you do set a date and you're planning this visit, send regular reminders to her, like, a couple weeks ahead or a couple every month or something. Say, we're so excited for our visit. How's the weather over there? What are you looking forward to the most? Like, to just let her know, like, we're still coming, because there is a lot of fear and there's a lot of anticipation leading up to the visits too. And so that can kind of help her relax a little bit. But yeah, like we were saying, I mean, communication really is so important here. Getting comfortable with just saying things out loud and addressing them when they come up and being proactive about some of these hard conversations really can avoid a lot of conflict.
Yeah.
Something
Yeah,
else
you
I have
do.
seen
Yeah.
also, we have friends who have planned a visit and their child was so excited about it, and then birth mom didn't show up. And so
Mm.
then it was managing the fallout and the emotions of that happening. And so I think again the communicate like the contain and they had had a lot of communication
Mhm.
leading up to it. For them to not show up was very hurtful for
Right.
for them and for their child. I so something that we have done at times when it has felt a little more unstable, is like I know that I am doing all the planning, but I haven't shared that with my child yet.
Right.
So I feel very confident that it is
Mhm.
100% going to happen. Also, if it's a matter of you're having to travel someplace, like planning a trip and the visit be a part of the trip, not that the visit is the only part of the trip.
Mhm.
And so that there are still, you know, fun things and exciting things that happen, even if that piece of it doesn't happen the way that everybody was expecting it to, I
Yeah.
think is really
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
good
that
idea.
makes a good point, and that kind of leads me to like my last few questions. Um, I don't want to run too long. So after the visit, what do you recommend for parents, and what do you recommend for birth parents after the visit? Do you have conversation? Do you ask questions? What do you check in? Do you recommend that the birth mother go and, treat herself? Like, what is going on, and what do you recommend after the visit?
Hmm. It's hard. I'll be honest, like I always feel emotionally and physically exhausted after a visit.
Why?
Well, because quite honestly, like for one, like I'm the one doing all the planning. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
my husband is rarely doing any of the planning. Our daughter's birth moms are not doing the planning. Like the bulk of the planning part of it is on me. So there's that piece of it. And just like kind of how we talked about, like trying to make sure that everybody is enjoying themselves, that it's a good visit, that it is like I said, a loving, fun, real visit. So I always feel very emotionally exhausted afterwards. I always, share pictures that have been taken,
Mm-hmm.
just text pictures back and forth. But I will say I feel like I notice, and Jesse, tell me if you've seen this as well. I tend to not hear from her for a bit after we've done a visit.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely takes me reaching back out again to kind of like reinitiate conversation.
Yeah.
Before you answer that, Jesse, real quick, I wanted to ask you one more question, Jamie.
Sure.
Do you have conversation with your children about the visit? Like, do you ask them how they feel about it? Do they like do any activities like draw or color? Is there any kind of conversation like including your children?
Yes, but not right away. I feel like
Okay.
because I don't want to make it like they had to have fun, like they had to enjoy
Mm-hmm.
themselves. I try to
Right.
let them like just process what it
Yeah.
was. And then later in that day or the next day, like, hey, do you want to look at the pictures from our visit yesterday? Or do you want to see the ones
Mm-hmm.
that she sent back to me? And then try and just have conversation with it based around that and then allow questions to happen. And there have been tears at
Oh
times.
yeah.
There
Yeah.
have been tears at times. But yeah, trying not to, it is a hard balance, I feel like, to like not make your kid feel like they have to have big emotions or small emotions
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
these
Thinking
things.
yeah.
Right.
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
it is emotionally exhausting. Not even in a good, if nothing goes wrong, it's just,
Right.
it's a lot of
Mhm.
nerves. It's a
Lot.
lot of
Yeah.
just managing, and you're
Mhm.
just so acutely aware of everything going on. And it's just, you're just, yeah,
Mhm.
it's a
What did
lot. And
what do you do, Jesse? Like to after, like what do you do for yourself?
yeah, I mean, typically just give yourself like a day to relax afterwards. Like if you're,
Mhm.
I talk to moms about this. I'm like, if you're able to take off work the next day, take off work and like almost like have a mental health day the next day.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
sleep in, eat your favorite foods, watch your favorite show, turn on that favorite song that you listened to on repeat when you were,
Hmm.
18 years old, that like the feel good stuff. Like that's what you
Yeah.
need to prioritize that next day. Low commitment. Don't be rushing around and trying to get a bunch of stuff done. Just relax, just chill.
Mhm.
Because yeah, it can be heavy and it can feel very restless and really not really sure what to
Mhm.
do. But yeah, there's this come down after the visits that you have to kind of manage even when the visits go well. And I think that's one
Right.
thing I want families to understand is like there are going to be emotions even with the good visits. And so that doesn't mean that the visit went bad or mom doesn't still want to be a part of the relationship, even if she doesn't really respond. It's also just hard to like, how do we get back to where we were? Like, because it's not a normal relationship. Like, every visit is like planned well in advance. This isn't like a last minute type relationship. I mean, I think if you guys think of just your like different friends that you have in your life, you have like friends that are the last minute friends where you can say, "Hey, what are
Right.
you up
Yeah.
to tonight? There's this
Hmm.
going on." And those are a little bit more easy and more comfortable, but with a lot of these adoption relationships, they're not there yet. They haven't reached that like natural pace of a relationship. And so yeah, it could feel bizarre going from like seeing them in person to then now you're just kind of communicating through the phone until you
Hmm.
see them again. So, don't be intimidated by a mom not answering. Don't assume that she's completely
Hmm.
lost it either. Like
Yeah.
visits can be hard for moms, but no visits are harder. And no updates are harder because it
Yeah.
really
With
is
the
the
like,
difference
yeah.
between sanity and insanity sometimes. And I
Mhm.
think when families kind of hold back, like we can feel that. We know when they're being
Yeah.
hesitant, and it makes us wonder, well, why are they hesitant? Do they not like me? Do they not trust me? When really they're hesitant because they don't want to trigger us, kind of
Yeah.
thing. And you
You
can't really
can't.
avoid it. I mean,
Yeah.
these emotions are going to happen.
Yeah, Jamie, I like how you said that you send pictures after the visit because I think that's a like a window or it kind of just kind of helps, while she's processing, but just kind of keeps the door open for them. It's like to me that's showing initiative and that's still leading and letting her know that she can reach out, whatever. Um, what is one last thing you would like parents to know, birth mothers to know, adoptees to know, about after like visits after placement.
Well, I think it's going back to talking about the pictures, you do have to make sure that everyone is clear also on what everyone's comfort level is on sharing those beyond
Mhm.
text message.
Mhm.
Has there been an established comfort in terms of sharing with other relatives? Is there an established comfort about to share or not to share on social media? And you don't like if a visit has gone really well, and then photos are shared that somebody wasn't expecting to be shared, that
Mhm.
could put a real sour bookend on something that had been a great visit. So I wanted to just mention that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think the length of visits is one thing that people ask a lot about. I mean, in my opinion, if you're traveling from out of state, and even if you're not, like be prepared to spend a couple days. That doesn't mean that you're with them, all 24
Yeah.
hours, but
Yeah.
if you're flying in and you get there on a Friday, like, and you have enough time, like go to dinner. They're really excited, right? We're really excited that you're by and we want to see our child and want to see you guys because we also want to see the adoptive parents and get to know them too. Like we really do.
Mhm.
We want that bond. And so go to dinner really quick, go grab some food real quick, and then that next day, like, plan to spend that whole day with them. Um, Maybe not like, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., but like get a
Mhm.
good chunk of time in. And then if you've got a third day, maybe you guys see each other out for breakfast or, a real quick cup of coffee or whatever it might be, but don't just do these quick little, you fly in, you have dinner, and then you kind of go back because I've seen that. Like that's
Like
not going to give them on
whiplash.
any confidence in the relationship. And, even for out of town visits, like, or if you live in the same state, but you're just visiting from out of town, I mean, there is something about distance that obviously creates a greater longing at times. But yeah, be mindful of the length because sometimes it could
Mhm.
just feel like you're just throwing her a bone and you're just doing this because you're supposed to kind of thing. And no one wants to feel like that. And then I think even after the visits, checking in and saying like, we really enjoyed going and doing this with this visit. Be thinking about what you want to do for your next one or for the next one. Like if there's
Mhm.
stuff that you see that you want to do or try out or want to show us like we can reserve it for the next visit or we're looking forward to the next visit again, that validation that like yes, this is we just had this one, but don't worry, it's not going to be the last visit
Yeah.
because there is
Yeah,
that fear that it is going to be the last
Mhm.
one.
always
Yeah.
gonna be the last one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's such a
Yeah.
good point. That's such a good point. Well, y'all, everything that y'all said kind of mirrored each other. Like it's been just, I don't know, it's been so powerful. And I've heard these things. So thank y'all so much for your time. And to anybody who has any questions or wants to reach out to us, please reach out to us. All right, thank you.
All right,
Thanks.
thanks.
Bye.
Bye.